I save her because the corridor alarms won't stop screaming, and because the emergency manual says to pull anyone away from collapsing light fields, even if they're yelling at you in a language you don't speak. I grab her arm. She grabs mine harder. We tumble through a door that seals itself like it's offended by us. The ceiling collapses where we were standing. I laugh, mostly because I'm alive and that feels negotiable. She says something sharp. The translator lags, then politely informs me I have committed a serious breach of imperial proximity law. I say sorry. The translator upgrades that to a formal apology with subclauses. She stares at me. Her ears twitch. I pretend not to notice because I don't know the etiquette for that and I like my head attached. Security arrives late, weapons raised, panic perfectly choreographed. They freeze when they see her. Knees hit the floor. Titles pour out like loose cargo. Empress, Radiant Axis, Sovereign of 12 Spirals. I check my hands to make sure they're not glowing. They're just shaking. She tells them to stand down. They obey like gravity. She looks back at me and asks why I didn't run. I tell her the exit signs were lying. The translator hesitates, then commits. A few guards flinch, waiting for execution. She doesn't order it. That silence stretches. Then she says I have poor survival instincts. I agree enthusiastically. Medical drones buzz in. One tries to scan me. It sparks and apologizes. She waves it away. She says the law has already noticed. I ask if the law needs glasses. No one laughs. I add that laws back home usually need coffee before making life decisions. A court official coughs in horror. They take us to a chamber that hums like it remembers every argument ever had inside it. A machine unfolds, ancient and smug. The Empress says I saved her life. The machine agrees. It announces a binding, permanent. Celebratory chimes play the wrong tune. I ask if there's a return policy. The translator refuses to repeat that. She looks unsettled. That surprises me more than the chimes. She says this has never happened this way. I say most of my problems start with that sentence. The machine prints a seal and burns it into the air. I feel a tug like a thread knotted behind my thoughts. She asks my name again, softer. I give it. The machine records it forever. I joke that I've been called worse. She almost smiles. Almost, the chamber quiets, waiting for regret. I feel fear, sure, but also something steadier. She says the Empire will never let me go. I say I wasn't going anywhere today anyway. Outside, the station stabilizes. Inside, something irreversible finishes settling. She straightens Empress again and tells me to stay close. I ask how close. She says close enough to breathe. The translator doesn't embellish. I nod. For once, I don't make a joke. The bond introduces itself by waking me up before I remember falling asleep. Not loudly, just insistently, like a thought tapping me on the shoulder. I open my eyes and immediately regret it because the ceiling is moving. It's not falling, which I count as a win, but it is rearranging itself into imperial symbols that pulse every time my heart rate spikes. I tell it to stop. The ceiling ignores me. The bond does not. She's awake, too. I know this because the bond carries her irritation across the distance with impressive efficiency. She asks why I'm panicking. I tell her the room is judging me. She says the room judges everyone. I ask if it ever blinks. She says only when it's disappointed. They parade me through the palace like a hazardous artifact. Officials bow to her and stare at me as if I might explode. One asks if I understand the honor bestowed upon me. I say I understand the word honor and I'm suspicious of the rest. The bond twitches. She hides a reaction, poorly. She explains the law in fragments like it still offends her. Life debt, imperial claim, permanent proximity. I ask if permanent means permanent or imperial permanent. She says there's no difference. I ask if there's at least a user manual. She says I am the manual now. That feels like a design flaw. At court, they test us, not openly. Nothing so honest. They watch how close we stand, how fast we respond to each other, how the bond hums when someone says the wrong thing. A noble insults me indirectly. I miss it completely. She does not. The bond flares hot. I mutter that at least back home people insult you directly. She tells me not to provoke them. I tell her I'm not provoking anyone on purpose. The bond registers sincerity. That seems to confuse it. Later, she asks why I keep joking. I tell her silence makes people decide things for you. She says emperors don't have that problem. I say emperors don't get to be quiet either. The bond goes very still, like it's listening harder than either of us. There's an attempt, not dramatic, not obvious. A system glitch timed too well, shields stutter. She reacts instantly. I react clumsily. Together, somehow, it works. The bond snaps tight, aligning thought and movement. For a moment, there's no her and me, just action. When it ends, the room is intact and everyone is pretending nothing happened. She looks at me afterward like she's recalculating a star map. She says I should be afraid. I say I am. I just function better when I'm laughing. She considers that. Then she says quietly that no one has ever laughed while standing beside her before. The bond warms, slow and cautious. I realize I'm no longer counting exits. She notices that too. She doesn't comment. Neither do I. Some things don't need translating. The challenge arrives disguised as protocol. It always does. A council session announced too politely, too urgently. The bond stirs before the message finishes transmitting, carrying her awareness like a held breath. She knows. I know because suddenly I know too. They call it a legality review. I call it a breakup meeting with witnesses. I tell her that. She tells me to stop talking. I stop for almost 5 seconds. The council chamber seals. Ancient machines wake up, projecting laws written when stars were younger and apparently more judgmental. A rival speaks first, questioning whether an empress bound by accident can still rule by destiny. I lean toward the bond and think very hard about tripping him with my mind. It does not work. Disappointing. They offer me release. Exile, compensation. A small moon, oddly specific. All I have to do is agree the bond was a mistake. The room waits. She does not look at me. That hurts more than the offer. I realize something then. I'm not standing here because I was brave in a corridor. I'm standing here because I stayed. Because I learned when to joke and when not to. Because fear doesn't own me the way it used to. I clear my throat. The sound echoes like permission. I say no, again. The word feels heavier this time, truer. I say the bond wasn't a trap. It was a choice that started late. I say the empire survived centuries of loneliness and called it strength. Maybe it's time it tried something else. The machines hesitate. That's new. Data streams spike. The bond flares not sharp but steady. She finally looks at me. Her ears tilt slightly. I take that as a good sign. The council fractures, some retreat, some protest. The law recalculates. Ancient systems hate ambiguity, but they love precedent more. Eventually, the chamber announces a ruling. The bond stands reclassified, not debt, not claim, partnership. The word echoes strangely, unused. Later, when the palace quiets, she asks why I stayed when I could have ruled a moon. I tell her moons are lonely and I already tried that once metaphorically. She laughs, fully this time, no restraint. The bond hums like it's proud of us. She says she doesn't need me. I say I know. She says she wants me anyway. I don't joke, I just nod. We walk out together, not because the law demands it, because we choose it. The bond